So my guest today, you guys, is in his first year in real estate. He's already closed 28 transactions, currently has 8 pending, which, Justin, they're all going to close, let's be honest. And that will put you at 34 closings in your first year in real estate. So first and foremost, welcome to the show. I am excited to unpack your story for the audience, but I appreciate you jumping on with me today.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me.
For sure, for sure. So real quick, you got licensed in September 2021. And which market are you in?
I'm in the Pittsburgh area, Pennsylvania. We're based in Katanning, PA, which is right outside of Pittsburgh.
Awesome. Very cool. And so off air, you were telling me, you were a teacher, which, yes, to your point, that was what I wanted to do my whole life. I just didn't know that I was going to be teaching and coaching in the real estate space. But tell us about your past life and what led you into real estate.
Yeah, I was a teacher for 9 years, and I got a job right out of college. I was a music teacher, and I directed choirs, directed musicals, and I worked in the Pittsburgh area. And, after the years, I started thinking to myself, it might be time for a change. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be, looking back. And, my mother-in-law and my father-in-law are in real estate. And they mentioned to me, Justin, we'd love to have you. They're very successful realtors, top in our brokerage for our team. And I just went and I started listening to them. They told me everything that they knew, took me under their wing. And of course, I've been watching all of your videos as well. You're a phenomenal coach. And I really appreciate everything you do for us, posting to YouTube and all the content you do as well.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the kind words and thank you so much. And the industry is lucky to have people like yourself. So let's unpack the entire business so the audience has some, hopefully, pages and pages of some great takeaways, which I know they will. So you have been able to do something, Justin, quite frankly, that most agents aren't able to do in their first year. I mean, you are having a great first year, 28 closings. Let's first talk about what is the lead generation strategy to generate the business?
Yeah, so I am, first and foremost, I'm all into the for sale by owners. I'm all in. That is my primary source of business. I prospect daily. Probably not the amount of contacts that I would, I should be doing, but I'm, maybe 20 conversations a day.
That's great.
And I want to say that's 4 to 5 days a week. I'm not working weekend. I'm doing showings on weekends, but I'm not working the prospecting on the weekends. I'm having those conversations at a high level. I'm asking a lot of engaging questions to these people. When I first started, of course, when you first get on the phone with a for sale by owner, you don't really know what you're doing. You're just having that conversation like, hey, how you doing? So I started with just one of your scripts, actually. And as time went on, I just got a little bit better at making it more organic and a conversation and connecting with people. Just being able to have those conversations coming from a place of value, just being able to create value for these people. Because here's the thing, for sale by owners, a lot of them really need us. And once they realize, and I have the proof in my numbers, I'm selling them, for higher than what they were listing them for. Sometimes, they don't realize what their property is worth. So when you go to these appointments and you meet these people, or if you have these phone calls with these for sale by owners and you do comparative market analysis on their property, you have questions for them, you go and you take a look, and you maybe, a lot of times these for sale by owners, they do a lot of beautiful updates to their home. So they don't realize that that's going to increase the value of their home if they have brand new appliances, brand new windows, brand new roof, all these things that they've done to their property. So, we can give them a comparative market analysis at a high level, put together a great listing presentation for these sellers, and create a value proposition that I think is irresistible.
Yeah, that's amazing, Justin. And so what would you say, what percentage of your business is for sale by owners versus sphere of influence versus give us break down all your different lead sources and then maybe where most of the business comes from today? I know you said most is coming from FSBOs now.
100%. I would say about 50% of all of my business is directly correlated to for sale by owners.
Got it.
And the leads that come off of them, because when I realized very quickly on, because I'm still a newer agent, I'm still learning a lot. I have so much that I don't know. But these for sale by owners, you list the property and you'll get a lot of buyers that way too.
That's right.
People are calling into to inquire about the property. Maybe they don't have an agent. So, I'm doing a lot on the buy side as well. And a lot of that is just people that I'm meeting through these for sale by owners.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, and then the sphere just expands from there, because if you stay in contact with these people, because I'm very quickly realizing that, this is not a churn and burn business,
Yeah.
and I'm learning that from you. I'm learning that from my brokerage that, these are people that you want to stay in contact with forever.
100%. We have to treat the business the same way a CPA does, or a financial planner or an insurance agent does, and build a book of business so that we don't have to keep turning and burning. We can build a clientele that we serve for our entire career that serve us right back. So that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I talk about quite a bit is focusing primarily on building a listing-based business, because that's how you will generate the best, highest qualified buyer business. And that sounds like exactly what's happened to you in your first year. Is that right?
100%. And, the for sale by owners, and I do have a sphere, I have a lot of contacts in education as a teacher that I was. I'm helping a lot of, former colleagues, board members, things like that. So I would say about 30% of my business is coming from sphere.
Great.
And I'm just very fortunate to know a lot of people in that sphere. And I would say about 20% is, just paid leads, like Zillow, things of that nature. We have a small budget for that. And, we pick up some buyers and some listings that way too.
I love it. I love it. Very cool. All right. Awesome. So what is it like your in-laws and your brokerage? What are they thinking about the level at which you're producing, Justin? Because I'm sure they tell you, hey, it's not normal to have agents come in their first year and do 35, 40 deals in their first year. Are they traditional like sales people that prospect every day, like you're learning how to do? Or are they like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what you're doing?
That's a great question. And I think about half of them are just completely bewildered and shocked.
Yeah.
But we do have some people, and I work with Remax.
Great company.
Yeah, absolutely. We had some people that came in and during our training, because they had a great training program for new agents that I took full advantage of. And they had a couple people that came in and they were, to use your lingo, talking about the outbound sales business that we're in, and took the mindset and the framework sort of similar to what you teach and coach your clients to do, where, they're calling expireds, they're calling FISBOs, they're calling, they're talking about niche and getting a niche and focusing on that. And for me personally, I just want to focus on one thing and be really good at it versus doing a lot of different things before I decide to really branch out and do more things.
Super smart, right? We talk about it all the time. Niching down to blow up your business, where most agents want to go super wide because they have a scarcity mindset and they end up with nothing, chasing a bunch of squirrels, catching none. So in your opinion, you're in your first year in this industry. To your point, you had a lot of agents that started with you. 50% are bought into the fact that we are in an outbound sales business. And maybe the other 50%, or I would even argue higher, refuse to accept that, Justin. And so why do you think? Because all the evidence is around us. I mean, there are guys like you, and there are thousands of us that have built our business successfully with a proven strategy that works. Why do you believe that so many people in our industry refuse to accept that this is, in fact, an outbound business, regardless if you're going direct to the consumer or if you're buying leads? You still have to be the one to initiate conversation. So whether you're marketing, advertising, or direct outbound prospecting, it's still an outbound effort. So what are your thoughts on that?
You're 100% right. And I think that a lot of agents are, taking the path of least resistance, and a lot of times, it's a lot easier to, make a Facebook post or, do this or do that and feel like you're being productive. Where in reality, I don't know anybody else at my brokerage, doing what I'm doing in my first year.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a whole episode in and of itself of why they refuse to do the work. But do you think that there is any chance, and I want your brutal honesty here, which I know you will give us, do you think there is any chance that you would be at the level of production you're at in your first year if you did not treat this as an outbound business and you just focused on all inbound strategies? So just social media and waiting for business to find you. Is there any chance that you think you'd be where you're at now?
0%.
Yeah.
0%. And because these people didn't even reach out to me, my sphere, they didn't even realize, that I was fully in real estate and being productive until I started working with all these for sale by owners and people and building my business.
Because they saw you started becoming top of mind. You started to build that a name for yourself. And so anyway, the reason I asked that question, Justin, is for every new real estate agent that might watch this episode or listen to this episode, I really want them to understand, because it's so painful for me to watch on the coaching side. So many great people get into the industry, and then they try to bounce around from all these shiny objects, and they just have to get back to basics, execute on the fundamentals, treat it like an outbound sales business, and amazing things start to happen. And so that's why I like to go deep on that. So let's talk about strategy for a second. So a lot of your business is coming from for sale by owners. You got into it a little bit, but what did you learn about communicating with for sale by owners in terms of maybe what you've learned through the work that I do, and specifically the difference between, I think, what is being taught out there to go out there and pressure people to list their home versus taking the approach of serving them as their agent before they need one, so that when they need one, you become the obvious choice. I really want you to unpack how that's worked for you.
Oh, 100%. When I first started doing these calls and these outbound prospecting, I was new. I didn't know a lot. I just thought, rather than continue to learn, let's get in and let's just dig down and do it. So I read your scripts and, got hung up on, people didn't really, you sound scripted. You sound like a sales, you're just trying to pressure them into getting a listing. And that's really not what it's about. And it shouldn't be about that. Why we're doing this is to help people. And
That's
that
right.
is our sole focus in this job. And that's my sole focus, is to serve. I got into this business because I love helping people. And like I said in the very beginning, sellers, a lot of them need our help. And sometimes, they need help with pricing. Maybe they need help with marketing their property. Maybe they need help with taking better pictures of their property. Maybe they need some guidance as to, strategies. Maybe they want to list a little bit lower in the market and get a lot of offers, or maybe they want to list higher, and just unpacking that for them, the whole process, how this is going to work, and just providing value.
Yeah.
What we need is a value proposition.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that in a second. So yeah, you're hitting it. And the thing that I think most agents will learn as they grow their career is that there's a couple, nothing is binary, right? Like there's no black and white, and one of the things that I really focus on when I try to teach and coach a real estate agent on really how to be of service, because there's something at play here that they don't realize. And that is, and now this, Justin, I want your thoughts on this. The reality and the likelihood of us calling a stranger out of the blue, going there to meet with them at the first meeting, and them giving us their business is so unlikely, number one. Number two, we're talking to people that are further up the funnel, so they're on their journey of selling a property anyways. And so the thought and idea of hiring a real estate agent, they're just not there yet. So why would we, knowing those two facts, why would we try to fast track it? It just leads to them pushing back, losing the relationship, and you never getting anything. So talk about that.
100%. Just going back to what I said before, this is about them. This is not about us. This is not about how much business, we're in this business, because, we love it. But at the end of the day, we're here to help them. So there's a lot of times where a seller might not be ready, and we need to respect that and stay top of mind until they are ready.
Yeah.
And, for perfect example, my best listing, that I'm getting this week, I've been talking to her from the very beginning.
Yeah.
The very beginning. And it's going to be an $850,000 house. And she just wasn't ready.
That's right. And that brings me right to my next point, which is lead follow-up, right? So strategically, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would assume your process looks something like this. You make outbound prospecting. You have conversations every day, 20 a day, you said, right? Which is a great number, by the way. 100 or so a week, 400 or so per month, which is 5,000 a year. That's a great foundational business. Now, your goal with that, we call it lead generation. So you're looking for opportunities to go and meet with people. You make a great first impression, and then most of the business actually comes through lead follow-up. Is that correct?
I'd say 90 to 95%. Only one time where it happened where I brought a buyer to FISBO, and, I said, had the conversation with them. They didn't end up buying it. And they actually called me and said, hey, I think we need to list this property. That was the only time.
Yeah.
And I consider that a bonus. It was just a nice bonus.
So 35, you'll probably end up, I don't know where you're going to end up in 2022, but 35, 40, 45 deals, who knows, right? You're doing really well. 90 to 95% come through lead follow-up. So this means, in other words, there's some advice being given out there that, hey, if this person's not ready to list their home today, you just throw that lead in the garbage. I think it's the worst advice given, because we're sitting here having a conversation with you, an agent in his first year, that will probably be amongst the top 1% of producers in your first year in this industry, doing the exact opposite of that common advice. So talk to us about your lead follow-up approach and what's working for you.
Oh, that is the secret right there. If people watching this, if you're going to listen to anything, I think this is really what, the most important piece, because in the beginning I was terrible at it. I was terrible.
Leads falling through the cracks. You didn't have a system. Nothing was organized.
I wasn't organized, things, I'm making calls. I'm excited, and all this stuff's happening, but for what? So everybody I have, it goes into CRM. We use Booge at Remax. And and not only just the emails or the drip campaigns, I'm calling these people once a month. I'm sending them text messages. I'm sending them video texts. I'm emailing them. And that has been successful in the sense that not everybody responds the same to every single form of communication.
That's right.
And if you're hitting them in different ways, whether you're texting them, you're calling them. And you don't want to bother people. If somebody says that I'm not ready, please let me know in 3 months, then I'm going to let you know in 3 months, and I'm going to follow up with you then. And I respect that. And that's just my opinion.
I love it. Now do you go ahead? Well, I was going to say, do you take a systematic approach to all of that? Or is it like when you remember, like, do you have sticky notes all over the car and the house? Like, oh, I got to call Bob and send text to Susie. I would imagine you have a system and a process around your communication plan. And to your point, I think that the lead follow-up is the start of the relationship building process, so that the homeowner can see, is this the type of person that I could see myself working with in the future? So talk about your system around communication.
Yeah, my system right now, it is Google Sheets. And I have my CRM that runs my drip campaigns, that does all that stuff. They're in there, but as far as the text messaging, the phone calls, the video texts, I have those typically, and I kind of gauge every lead a little bit differently depending on where they're at. Are they going to list their property next month, potentially? Are they going to list their property in 6 months? Are they going to list their property in 12 months? Those all look a little different to how I approach them. Like I have a lead right now. He's fantastic. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He's going to be a really big buyer, but he's going to take some time to really nurture that.
Absolutely.
Lead.
Yeah.
And he's told me, he said, when the time comes, you're my agent, just check in with me every couple of months.
I love it.
And he drove that conversation for me, and I'm here to serve.
And that was a key nugget. I mean, I almost want what you just said, I talk about micro commitments, and the prospects should be driving our lead follow-up activities. We should not be forcing leads into the CRM that never want to hear from us. And so you just went over that, but hopefully the audience picked that up, Justin. Prospects set the next step in the process, and we're just respecting their wishes because we're starting to build that relationship. All right. So through lead follow-up, right, you're staying top of mind. I want to talk about a couple of key things that agents all have questions on, and you probably did too. One is, what is and I know it might be a guess, but I want your best guess. What is the time frame from initial conversation with the for sale by owner until the time maybe you're interviewing to help them get their property on the market officially?
Yeah, it just depends. But it's always in follow-up. I've never had a for sale by owner where you call them that first time, you have that conversation. They said, yeah, come list my property. That's never happened.
For sure.
Typically what it is, I take the approach of, I encourage you, I support for sale by owners and want you to sell this property on your own if you can. In the instance that you can't, in say maybe 14 to 30 days, would you be interested in the idea of working with an agent? And from that point, I usually let that play out. And if the property is still available, at that point, they're generally usually ready to meet with me. I'll have that meeting with the person. I tell them, I don't want you to sign anything. This is just my philosophy. I'm not there to do that. I'm just there to present you some information, provide some value to you, give you a comparative market analysis. I don't ever give the price at the property when I'm there. I take pictures on my cell phone, not listing pictures, just some general pictures. I'll go back home, do my research, do this, as a professional, and present the information a day later and say, here's what I developed for you. When you're ready to list your property, or if you feel like this is the right plan for you, please call me and let me know.
Amazing. Justin, not only what you're doing, the way you articulated that is just almost textbook, and so kudos to you. You should be so proud because you're serving people at such a high level, and it's becoming obvious because people in your market are taking you up on the marketing analysis, right? So you go meet with them. You're there to understand, how can I serve this person? We're not giving prices there. We're not trying to pitch. We're not trying to convince. We're not trying to pressure. We're not trying to do any of that. We're really taking an approach to say, okay, here's how I would handle the sale of your home from a marketing standpoint. You follow back up and say, here's my plan. I'd love to be of service if you find value in the plan. So you said about 14 to 30 days is the conversion cycle on average. I know we're just guessing, but high level, 2 to 4 weeks in this market is what you're finding from initial conversation to listing opportunity. Would that be fair?
That's very fair. Yes.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing too. Now, what is the tipping point in lead follow-up that gets you the actual listing? Now, what I mean by that is this: through all of these activities that you're talking about, do most of your listings come through, well, Justin, thank you so much for following up. I love the meeting. Come list my house. Just come list me. Or is it like, hey, we'd like to meet with you, and then you're setting up an actual interview?
It really depends. I'm starting to discover that, because I'm on like 4 different counties where I live right here. Certain areas are using our, the outbound sales, because I'm learning that these are the people that I'm up against.
That's right.
Because these are people that are doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other areas where like, well, nobody's really over here. This is my spot. So it really depends on, first of all, are there other agents involved? Or am I the only one that's doing this? Because in a lot of cases, I am.
Yeah.
And it just depends. Sometimes there's been 50 realtors that have called this FSBO.
Yeah.
It really depends on the area and where they are. And whenever there have been times where I've been up against other agents and I've gotten the listing. And it just is a matter of, a value proposition.
Yeah.
And what I hear from sellers is that it sounds to me like you're just a genuine, nice person that wants to help us. And that's what they want.
I love it. I love it. So it's just probably 50-50 through lead follow-up. Sometimes they say, and really what I'm asking is, like, through the conversations of lead follow-up, how the conversations get you to the listing opportunity. Because sometimes through lead follow-up, that's enough to win the business by itself. So sometimes, right, we experience agents, and myself in my career, where they're just like, come on over. We love you. Come list it. We can't do this. That's a come list me call. Other times it's like, hey, I appreciate you staying top of mind. We'd like to meet with you and see what you can do for us. Right. So I guess that's what I'm asking is, of the come list me business versus like come meet with us business, would you say it's maybe 50-50, or would you say it weighs on one side or the other?
Well, how I approach it is I like to go in with the idea of just providing you with a comparative market analysis and seeing if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because right now they're selling for sale by owner.
Yeah.
And I support that. And I want them to know that from the very beginning, that if it makes more sense for you to sell this property on your own and get it sold and take care of that, that's great. That's what you're here to do. But if it makes more sense, if I think that I can make you more money, and believe me, I don't want to waste your time as the seller of this property.
That's right.
I'm really here just to see if I can provide value. Because there's been times where I've gone into a house and I've said, this house is maybe 100,000 over asking.
Yeah.
It's overvalued.
Yeah.
And there are times where I tell them, hey, I'm sorry, but this is what I feel that your property is worth. And they might get upset or say, well, it's worth this, and I say, well, in that case, I really wish you well and I hope you the best.
Good for you. I mean, because you're just being honest with people. You're not trying to, do whatever you can, as a lot of agents are that are just so desperate for a listing. They'll go in there, they'll overprice it, they'll not tell the sellers the truth, they'll discount their commissions to nothing. I just don't believe that is what we're here to do. You're taking away from them. You're disservicing the seller. You're certainly devaluing yourself and your family's own worth. And so I just don't think that's the direction agents should go. So let me ask you, let me kind of change directions. How are you able, this is really where the rubber meets the road. How are you able to get up every day because of the success you're having and prospect every day without complacency setting in, and stay accountable to yourself of every day you show up and you do the work?
That's another really great question. And it's hard. It's hard. And I'm sure that, everybody else, in your company and things, would agree that, you have some success, things are going well, but then you can't forget what got you there. Because like you said, you start making, getting all this business, if I was to stop prospecting right now, it would be a slow burn, but I'm going down.
Yeah.
And that's just the case, and I have some people that I've met that I think will turn into more business through the CRM and things like that. But, I'm in the idea that I'm going to continue growing and I will probably make calls my entire career.
That's right.
And
that's the business that we're in.
And that's it, and there
Great
are
mindset.
times where I get down there and I'm ready to go and I'm going, oh, this is going to be, here we go again, because not every call goes super well. It is, I do have a pretty high success rate with the for sale by owners, I think, comparatively speaking to some other numbers I've seen, but it can be hard, so you just have to decide, how bad do you want it?
That's right. That is the mindset right there. How bad do you want it? Most agents are they're all talk. I mean, you could only imagine how often I hear agents that say they want it right until it's time to make the phone calls. Then all of a sudden their goals change. It's amazing how that works. So your advice for new realtors. Okay. So you're rewind the clocks. You're getting your license all over again, knowing, Justin, what you know now. What would you say to yourself that other new agents that are watching this episode can learn from?
It's a great question. If I was to start from the very beginning, I would have gotten that CRM established from day one. That was my biggest mistake, and I'm still brand new, so I didn't waste too much time, but I wasted 3 or 4 months where I could have been taking all these people, putting them into a database and staying top of mind with them. Because I think that is the biggest key that I've learned in my first year, is the follow-up and staying top of mind and keeping these people in a database.
That's right.
And treating this like a business. I watched your video the other day about creating a practice. And that is exactly what we're here to do. And if you do that, and to any new realtor, if you are making these outbound prospecting calls, or if you're knocking on the door, whatever works for you. For me, the phone works great, but you can door knock, you can do other ways, direct mail, but whatever it is, I think that communicating on the phone is at a high level of communication with these people. And if you're able to do that and develop those skills to be able to have those conversations and ask great questions and build that rapport, then, get them into your CRM if it makes sense, and don't just throw anybody into there. If you had a conversation, you got an email, well, do you think that they're going to sell their home someday? Well, if they're not, then they shouldn't be going in there. So don't over bloat your CRM, and just make sure that you're following all the things that Brandon is teaching, because he has been my sole, I've had other people tell me things, but I watch all of his videos and it's extremely effective if you do it right.
What great advice. And again, thank you for the kind words. We are here to build a sales practice. And when we have the mindset of that, Justin, you said it better than I could. We're going to spend time in lead generation every day. We're going to put people that we want to serve into our database. We're going to follow up with them by providing value. And over time, our businesses will grow. It's as simple as that. So Justin, listen, man, I am glad that we had an opportunity to connect. Thanks for we had to move this around a couple of times on you. So I really do appreciate it. You're going to inspire a lot of new real estate agents when we upload this to YouTube and to our podcast, probably the same way you learned about me. And so is there a way for people to reach out to you, connect with you, ones that you've inspired from today's episode? Where can people find you?
Yeah, 100%. You can find me. I work with the Mike and Melissa Barker team, and I work with Remax Select Realty. My name is Justin Trainer, Trainer. If you find me, you'll find my website. You'll find all my contact information there.
Awesome. Justin, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Love to have you back on the show in a year from now and see how far the business has grown. So I want to thank you so much for pouring back into this real estate agent community.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor.
Awesome, Justin. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Okay.
Take care.